Louisiana, we love our crawfish, gumbo, and the chance to go hunting and fishing. We were all raised not to complain about bad things, but look for the good that may come next. But now,
What did you say to us, Bob? How to tolerate that? If you don't agree with their behavior.
we have one of the most contentious battles for governor that we have seen in years. Like a hurricane brewing in the Gulf, the tension is building between the candidates. Voters are being hit with a torrent of negative ads, and like bolts of lightning, candidates are stunning each other with words like liar, cheat, and disingenuous.
I'm a Louisiana conservative, he's a pro on the liberal.
There is enough scandal and embarrassment here to last a lifetime. Louisiana doesn't need any more of that.
With the state budget in shambles, critical education decisions hanging in the balance, and many roads in disrepair, it is not the issues that separate Republican David Vitter and Democrat John Bel Edwards. What separates the two men are who they are, what they've done, and what they say they're going to do for Louisiana. Tonight, look for those answers in the last statewide gubernatorial debate, because it is the hope for the future and the storm passes that we all hang on to in Louisiana.
We are coming to you live tonight from the Dunham School in Baton Rouge with the final statewide televised debate before the runoff election. Good evening to our viewers all across the state. We're broadcasting live to New Orleans, Baton Rouge, Shreveport, Monroe, Alexandria, Lafayette, and Lake Charles. We're also streaming live online all across the state. We're now just 5 days away from the runoff election, so we bid you hello and welcome. I'm Craig Hickory from Local 33 News here in Baton Rouge, alongside my colleague Jackie Jovic from NBC6 News in Shreveport.
And here with us tonight, the two remaining candidates for Louisiana governor. Republican Senator David Vitter from Metairie and Democratic State Representative John Bel Edwards from Amite. Gentlemen, thank you for being here.
Thank you for the invitation.
Here now are the rules for tonight's debate. Gentlemen, we will not have any opening statements. Each candidate will have 1 minute to respond to each question. They will then get 30 seconds to answer any follow-ups. At the end of the debate, each candidate will get 30 seconds to make a closing statement. We have more than 400 people in the audience tonight. It's a big gathering, so we'd like to ask all of you to please hold any applause until the end of the debate.
Before we get started, we want you to know you can follow the debate online. Just look for hashtag LAGovDebate on Twitter and Facebook. We'll post background information on all of our questions for the candidates, statements they've made in the past, and extra information on the topics we'll talk about tonight. So be sure to follow along on Twitter, hashtag LAGovDebate.
All right, gentlemen, let's begin with the big story breaking all around the world, and that, of course, are the attacks in Paris, France, and what those attacks mean for us here in Louisiana. In light of these attacks, Governor Bobby Jindal is demanding more information about the Syrian refugees being placed in Louisiana. Recently, 14 Syrian refugees arrived in New Orleans, and just this morning, Governor Bobby Jindal issued an executive order stopping any more from arriving. You both staked out different positions on the issues, and we'll begin with you, Senator Vitter. What do you think is the best way to approach the Syrian refugees?
Well, Fred, let's understand, the Paris bombing was perpetrated by at least one person who came into France as a Syrian refugee. That was a great vulnerability. And we face that threat now because President Obama is saying we're going to take at least 10,000 Syrian refugees into the United States, including relocating them in Louisiana. We already have some here. For months, I said that's unacceptable. I've criticized President Obama's policies, I've criticized his plans, and I've said as governor, I wouldn't allow that to happen. And I have a consistent record of standing up to President Obama, fighting for border security, fighting for national security in that regard. My opponent has staked out a very different position. In fact, he staked out 4. But last night he said he would fully cooperate with President Obama, including in relocating Syrian refugees. Now today he's trying to change his tune. He's now had 4 different positions in 48 hours. I don't know where he is, but I know we can't trust where he might end up because he's always consistently supported President Obama, including in terms of immigration enforcement, or I should say non-enforcement.
Thank you very much, Mr. Edwards. We'll allow you a chance to answer that same question. What do you think is the best way to approach the Syrian refugees?
First of all, as I told all the people in Louisiana to start the runoff, David Vitter is desperate. He will lie. He will destroy. It's what he does.
It's who he is because he lacks a moral compass. On Saturday, I called for a halt to all Syrian refugees coming into Louisiana. I also expressed support for Governor Jennifer's letter to the president demanding more information about those who are already here. Today, I immediately, when he issued the executive order, said I supported the executive order halting the further immigration, or I should say relocation, of Syrian refugees into Louisiana. This is about public safety. The number one issue that we face as a government, and as governor, I will take it seriously. It's who I am. I know a little thing or two about protecting American lives. I'm a graduate of the United States Military Academy. I commanded paratroopers. I have the support of the Sheriff's Association, the Louisiana State Troopers Association, because they know that as governor, I will partner with them and work every day to keep the people of Louisiana safe. Senator, you missed key votes in the legislature, Congress, when you could have stopped this.
Would you like to respond? 15 seconds.
Absolutely, Fred. Look at John Bel Edwards' Facebook post yesterday. It says very clearly he would fully cooperate with President Obama, including in resettling refugees here. That's what it says. Now, I realize he tried to change that tune today. Again, 4 different positions in 48 hours.
Thank you, Senator. We'll allow you 10 seconds.
That is not what the Facebook says. It says we will have a conversation to get the information about those refugees who are here. It uses the word conversation. He skips what I said Saturday. He skips what I said today. Because
Fred, I want to have a conversation. I want to put a hold to this. When the Syrian refugees
Senator, you just reconsidered me when you could have done something about this in the Senate.
Moving on to issues here in Louisiana and the campaign. The unique part about this campaign is even though you're from different parties, you both have similar positions on many of the important issues to voters. For voters watching for the first time, here's a scorecard to show where you both are very similar. You both have told voters you're pro-life. You both say you're open to using Medicaid money. And you both now said you are against federal common core. Mr. Edwards, we'll start with you. What sets you apart from your opponent on these issues?
Well, first of all, with respect to the Medicaid expansion, I have said for 3 years that I support the Medicaid expansion because it's the right thing to do to bring $1.6 billion of our tax dollars home to take care of the working poor in Louisiana as opposed to allowing the Medicaid program, by the way, 14 of which have Republican governors. This is not right versus left. This is right versus wrong. We're going to do right by the people in Louisiana. We have some of the worst health outcomes. We have working poor people who need that care. I'm going to bring those dollars home, provide that care so that our hospitals get the reimbursements and so that they can stay strong and open for everyone. You know, when a hospital closes, it doesn't just close for the Medicaid population or the poor or the uninsured. It's going to close for everyone. And that's why we need to bring our tax dollars home and put them to work here in Louisiana. There's a lot of care that we can deliver for $16 billion over 10 years, our tax dollars. As our governor, I will bring those dollars back and put them to work here in Louisiana.
Jackie, what you laid out in question is largely what John Bel was trying to portray in the campaign. Problem is his record is fundamentally different. And the pro-life issue is a perfect example. I'm glad he's personally pro-life. What has he done as a legislator? What are the public positions he's taken? He said in a questionnaire, abortion is a matter of choice. That's not a pro-life phrase. He said no in a questionnaire to supporting an end to abortion after the first trimester. Then when that came to light, he changed the answer in that questionnaire only a few weeks ago. He would not commit to fighting in every way possible to defund Planned Parenthood to stop them from building an abortion mill in New Orleans. Good reason. The Gulf Coast head of Planned Parenthood enthusiastically supports them. So does another radical left organization, the Independent Women's Organization of New Orleans, clearly pro-abortion. He has an F from Family Forum on these significant issues. That's a very different record than mine. I have the endorsement of National and Louisiana Right to Life.
Over 8 years in the legislature, my record is 100% with the Louisiana Right to Life. On 28 separately scored issues, votes, 100%, Senator. And you know, I don't sit there and say that you're less committed to life because you supported Rudy Giuliani, who was both pro-choice and anti-gun. I don't say that about you because I don't believe that to be your position. But I will say this to you, Senator, you're a hypocrite.
I'm perfectly comfortable with who I am, with my family's love for me, and my work. That's earned me the endorsement of National and
Thank you,
Louisiana.
Senator. We're going to move on to the next question.
This next question, gentlemen, both of these are going to be specific to you. Mr. Edwards, going to begin with you. Growing the Louisiana economy is going to be key in helping to solve the budget crisis. However, as a state lawmaker, you were given a failing grade by the state's largest business association. On its annual legislative scorecard, the Louisiana Association of Business and Industry said you're one of the least friendly state lawmakers to business. They've also said that the prospect of an Edwards election should scare the business community. So the question is, will you raise taxes on businesses, and how will you work with the Louisiana business community if you were elected governor?
Well, Fred, first of all, I would point out that the Louisiana Association of Business and Industry actually failed about 90 legislators this year because for the first time in 7 years, we didn't take a cuts-only approach. For example, LSU here in Baton Rouge, over $120 million less to support that university than 8 years ago coming from the state. And that's a cut of over 50%. We decided to do something different in the 7th straight year of revenue shortfall, and we reduced some tax credits and tax rebates. They didn't like that. Understand that they don't like that. But you know what? It's time to put Louisiana first, and we have to have an approach to what I don't have a plan to raise taxes on business. In fact, my plan all along has been to reduce the corporate tax rate from 8% to 5% and make sure we do that in a revenue neutral way by eliminating the deduction for federal tax liability. That means the nominal rate and the effective rate will be the same, it will be 5%. Businesses won't have to hire CPAs or tax lawyers to figure out what their tax rate will be.
Let me follow up there, sir. What about renewing the tax increases that you voted in favor of this year, which were almost entirely on businesses?
Well, first of all, I dispute your characterization. They were reduction of tax giveaways, tax credits and rebates. We spent through the tax code just like we spent through appropriations. We did in the legislature this year reduce the tax expenditures, the tax giveaways to create savings that we then reallocated to higher priority items like healthcare and higher education. We had a safety net hospital system that couldn't operate unless we did that. We have a medical school in Shreveport that couldn't stay open unless we did that. Universities and community and technical college systems all around the country, all around the state, needed that revenue.
Thank you, Mr. Edwards. Senator Vitter, you have 30 seconds.
Well, Fred, the ratings you're talking about are lifetime ratings, nothing to do with just this year. John Bel has a lifetime rating from that organization of 27%. When I went to school, that wasn't just an F. I thought you got more points for putting your name right on the test. National Federation of Independent Business, 25%. His lobby rating is lower than Mary Landers, Mitch Landers, Bill Jefferson, for bottom 10% this past year. That's not just an F. That is being hostile to small business.
Thank you, sir.
That's who I give 100% to.
The fact is, that was 15 years ago.
We are moving on to the next
Today, is ever suggest otherwise.
Senator Vitter, this question is specifically for you. If elected governor, you'll need to work closely with Democrats as well as your own party, that you struggle to maintain support from Republicans. Lieutenant Governor Jay Darden is backing your opponent. According to the Louisiana Republican Party, 500,000 registered Republicans didn't even show up to vote in this past primary. With just 5 days left until the election, what can you do to energize and rebuild support for Republican voters?
Well, Jackie, I thought you were talking about real Republicans, but then you brought up Jay Darden. So great conservative support all around the state. We see that every day. I feel it. Voters are keying in on two things. The fact that this election is about our future, and it's between two candidates with vastly different records. Yes. A Louisiana conservative versus a pro-Obama liberal. Yes. Conservative voters all around Louisiana are keying into the vast differences that we've talked about. On Syrian refugees, vast differences. On being a pro-small business, vast differences. On education reform, I hope we get to that, vast differences. And they're voting and coming toward my strong conservative leadership.
Came out for early voting. And according to JMC Analytics, your opponent has a 15-point lead. So with 5 days left, what can you do to get Republicans?
Well, look, the early vote was certainly influenced by a lot of things, including huge Democratic money on the street. For instance, they paid for the gave them free drinks at a very adult New Orleans nightclub to pack them into a party. You know what? I'd much rather depend on the hard work, the perspiration, the dedication of our volunteers and our advocacy on that purple process.
I was at that place in New Orleans with my wife. With my wife. And I think yeah, not as interesting as your day night, Senator. Is supporting me as a Republican, the West Louisiana Parish President, the 21st Judicial District Attorney, the Sheriff of Jefferson Parish, all Republicans supporting me. He doesn't mention them because then people will know I'm the one who can bring people together and move them together.
About 15 years ago, I was talking about last Thursday night.
Can we
issues for
we are moving on.
I would like to once again ask our audience, please hold your applause because we have an awful lot
I
to
think that's going to work.
Mr. Edwards, this next one is for you to begin with. Last week, State Treasurer John Kennedy released his monthly revenue report, and it was not good. Since the fiscal year began in July, general fund revenues have been down each month, year over year. Mr. Kennedy also says in his 16 years in office, he's not seen collections and revenue drop so steeply on an annual comparison basis. Voters are very skeptical right now that the amount of money we need to fix our budget problems is so large that simply eliminating tax credits is not going to be enough. So either one of you gentlemen who win the election, it's going to be under tremendous pressure to generate new revenues. So this is a yes or no question for you first, Mr. Edwards. Will you raise taxes on individuals or businesses?
No.
You will not. Well, where's the money going to come from?
We're going to squeeze as much cost savings as possible out of the way we deliver services in the state of Louisiana. We're going to look for efficiencies everywhere we can find it. We're going to make sure we expand the flexibility so that we can allocate cuts across the broader spectrum of the budget and not have to be confined by the statutory and constitutional dedication. We're going to make sure we grow the economy and produce net new revenue. We're also going to make sure we accept our federal tax dollars back when they help us meet our obligations to our people and save us money. And we will focus on those tax giveaways, those tax credits, those tax exemptions, those tax reductions that cost too much money and don't produce enough return on investment. We will reduce those, create savings, and reallocate those savings to higher priority items like healthcare and higher education, which typically suffers 80% of whatever budget cuts we have out there. That's the responsible way to go forward. We will do that in Louisiana. You know, I believe that the best way to raise revenue is not by raising tax rates, it's by growing the economy. And that's what I will do with our next budget.
His analysis very much. He has a lot of background in this area. I'm also very humbled and honored that he's strongly supporting my candidacy. There again, on this issue, John Bel is saying one thing in the campaign,
But is it right? Yes or no? I didn't mean to interrupt you.
I'm not raising tax rates, and I never have. John Bel says it, but he has over and over and over again, raising business taxes, raising all sorts of taxes, $2.3 billion this year. Why do you think he's earned those Fs from small businesses? I'm going to start with real budget reform and on the spending side. And this is a fundamental difference between us. I'll take a balanced approach, but I'll start with budget reform and on the spending side by undedicating those other areas of the budget that are off limits now. Now, John Bel has adopted that position after I laid it out in this campaign. The problem is he's been in the legislature 8 years. He never offered a bill to do that. He never offered a bill to cut anything out of the state budget. 8 years and no leadership on that whatsoever. I mean, it's yet another classic example of Johnny Bel unlikely.
It's a I called upon David Vitter to apologize to Jay Garden and to Scott Angel. The fact of the matter is, you make everything up center. Your numbers aren't even the same this week as they were last week. I have not voted for tax increases for businesses. I have voted to reduce the tax giveaways. That is my record. I said it here tonight, and I will say it again. That is my record. I have not supported tax increases on businesses, and my position is not to do that as our next bill.
Thank you, Mr. Rose. 15 minutes.
But numbers in the 20s from all of the leading small business groups. That's his record. It doesn't happen by accident. My record is the opposite, which is why I'm strongly supported by small business groups, because of my work on the Senate Small Business Committee, standing up for job creation.
With less than 3 months until potential special session, which both of you said we need in order to solve our financial problems, you both released general outlines of your financial plan. So, will you pledge to publicly release the specifics of your financial plan prior to the special session for all to review? And will you have town hall meetings across the state to build support for your plan? Senator Vitter?
Well, absolutely, Jackie, and I put exactly that in writing months ago. My whole campaign is built on a strong, detailed plan about how we're going to address all of our key challenges in Louisiana. It's called Together, Louisiana Strong. It's at davidvitter.com. That plan is far more detailed than any other candidate in this race, including John Bel. And also in the plan is a whole chapter on keeping in touch. And I said I'll continue to do what I do as a U.S. Senator, going around the state relentlessly, having open town hall meetings in every parish of the state, reaching out to folks of all walks of life, and really listening. That's how I've always grounded my public service. That's how we developed this detailed plan Together, Louisiana Strong. That's how we're going to lead Louisiana in the right direction. And all of that is specifically laid out, including that very open, transparent process.
Senator Vitter, we have a copy of your plan, and it's pretty general, so this isn't something.
John Bel's plan. It's 12 chapters and hundreds of bullet points, and there's nothing comfortable on the part of the.
I'm just asking for a specific plan. Would you release a more specific plan before a special session so that voters and the public can weigh in on it?
Let me repeat it. My clear answer was yes. So I'll repeat it. My clear answer is yes. But that plan before you is far more detailed, far more specific than anything John Bel Edwards has ever produced. I don't know, certainly in time to engender the public debate we need to pass that plan. Jackie, I'm going to release it to the public for a simple reason. I need the support of the public to get on my side to push these tough reforms through the legislature. It's not going to be easy, and we're not going to accept the Baton Rouge status quo. We're going to and we can only do that with the strength and the support of the public behind me in those efforts, and we're going to have it, we're going to earn it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Prior to a special session.
Yes, and in fact, they have to. It will be in the call of the special session. As governor, I will call the legislature in the special session twice in the month of February. Once to deal with the now $500 million shortfall in the current fiscal year, and then again to deal with the remaining shortfall that we will have for the year starting July 1st of 2016. And I agree with the senator. It's going to be a tough ask. That's why we have to elect a governor who has a proven record and ability of working with people of both parties, bringing them together, forging consensus so we can tackle this challenge and restore opportunity to the people of Louisiana. That will be my #1 priority. Yes, I will release the call. It will have the details in it, and we will have town hall meetings all around the state to build support for that approach so that people can let their legislators know that they agree with the fundamental decisions that we would have made as an administration to move our state forward with these tough reforms.
Special session is not specific at all. It's the parameters, it's the boundaries of the session. I'll release a detailed plan building on the plan we have now together with Louisiana Strong.
These next two questions are individual questions. Senator Vitter, we'd like to begin with you in a very difficult topic. The allegations of prostitution have come to the forefront in the campaign in the past several weeks. You said you've been abandoned by your family and you're looking to the future. However, we'd like to ask you a couple of specific questions about a political ad your opponent has released. Documents show that minutes after you missed a vote on the House floor for a bill supporting soldiers killed in Iraq, your cell phone took a call from the D.C. Madam, Deborah Jean.
We're over it!
Why did you miss that vote? Did you take that call?
I've spoken about this directly with the people of Louisiana for some time. I apologize to them directly, and just as importantly, I committed to rebuild their trust by working hard every day. I've tried to do that. I've tried to re-earn that trust, and I'm hopeful that I'm on that path based on the vote of confidence they placed in me in my Senate re-election. Now, look, Jackie, I know that answer is not good enough for my political opponents. I know it's not good enough for the gotcha media who wants to make everybody understands the circumstances of that part of my life 15 years ago. So if that's not good enough for you, I'm sorry. It is good enough for Wendy. It is good enough for our family. And as I travel the state, I have town halls in every parish of the state. Voters come up with me with all sorts of real concerns and tough questions. And you know, Jackie, it's never that. It's about their is not going to be satisfied with that answer.
With all due respect.
But that is my answer, as I'm completely focused on the future for the people of
With all due
Louisiana.
respect, sir, we commissioned a poll. It shows that the people of Louisiana are not ready to move on. According to the poll, for you, how do these allegations? So what do you have to say to that 55% of people who said they would not vote for you because of these allegations? This is your
Jackie, I'm
opportunity.
speaking on television directly to those people right now. I've explained to them how I've worked hard to earn the redemption from that low point in my life. And that life, in my experience, isn't just about your falls, but the good news is it's more importantly how you get up, how you learn. Forgiveness, the good news is something people all around Louisiana can relate to. Maybe not on the level I have to experience it, but they appreciate it, they relate to it. They tell me that every day in terms of my service.
Well, look, the simple fact of the matter is we're all obligated as Christians to forgive. But that doesn't mean we have to forget. And there's certainly no obligation to both of someone who commits a crime and refuses to talk about it and refuses to answer any questions. He has never and we have cell phone records showing when phone calls were accepted.
Thank you, Mr.
John
Edwards.
Bel, let me just say thank you for those kind words. It's great to see your faith in God.
Your opponent here tonight says that you're going to be beholden to special interests. A super PAC supporting your efforts has taken hundreds of thousands of dollars from unions. And in just the last week, lawyers have donated more than $65,000 to you. The business community is suspect about your true intentions as governor. So when it comes time to make the difficult decisions on issues that often pit unions against business interests, where will your loyalties lie?
First of all, my loyalties will always be with the people of Louisiana. You just mentioned from lawyers. I have lawyers who work at defense firms as well as plaintiffs firms who support me. And by the way, the amount of money that you showed on the screen is a significant amount of money. But the fact of the matter is I've raised over $5 million since October the 24th from people all over the country. 96% in the state of Louisiana. It's most of it in very, very small amounts. It's a grassroots effort. Those are the people I'm going to be beholden to. No special interest at all. Now, I happen to be very proud of the law work that I do in my hometown of Amite, Louisiana, where I have a country practice. Working with small businesses, both as plaintiffs and defendants, doing wills and successions and contract work. I do lots of work, and I'm very proud of the work that I do as a lawyer. I'm very proud to have their support, but the support comes from people all over the state of Louisiana, and that's who I'll be committed to.
Thank you. Dues for public paychecks. You said you're for it. That shows a clear difference between you and Senator Vitter, which gives unions incentives to donate to your campaign. Isn't that what you're looking for?
Well, first of all, I'm assuming that people will donate to the candidate that they prefer. I believe that people who make a living and have a paycheck can voluntarily choose to join a union if they want to, and separately, if they do, choose to have their union dues deducted. It is at no cost to the state or local government, and we have never had any local government entity come to the legislature and ask us to end that practice. So I do not agree with the approach that would say by law that they are not allowed to have union dues deducted from their paychecks.
The John Bel Edwards campaign is a three-legged stool. First, the trial lawyers, huge amounts of money to protect abusive lawsuits that are killing Louisiana jobs, particularly in the energy industry. Second, unions want to bring us back to the bad old days when unions dominated Louisiana politics. And third, public education unions want to turn the clock back on reforms like education choice, charter schools.
You're all my fault,
John Bel Edwards has opposed all of that on behalf of those unions. We can't afford to go back.
So,
I understand to be a lawyer. In fact, he's not a lawyer. He surrendered his law license rather than answer questions, not about a sin, but about a crime.
Each year is becoming more difficult to fund the program. However, we found there's already a plan in place no one's talking about to cut down on the number of students who can take advantage of the program to run its costs. It states in the event of a shortfall, applicants who do not submit the federal financial aid form and have the lowest ACT scores will be the first to be eliminated from the program. So far, no one's used it. Senator Vitter, will you work to enforce this statute to control spending?
No, I'm going to work to make sure we never put that statute into place. I'm going to work to preserve TOPS so it's there for all students who are relying on it. And they rely on it now more than ever because of all the tuition and cost increases in Louisiana public higher ed. By the way, John Bel Edwards helped create that. He always rails against 5E Jindal. John Bel supported 5 out of 8 Jindal budgets. 5 out of 8. Cut $330 million out of Louisiana higher education. That's what we need to correct and end that F5000 cuts. So to preserve TOPS, I believe in common sense reforms as passed legislature this past year. Governor Jindal vetoed those. I would sign them into law to preserve TOPS for well into the future. We have to stop F5000 cuts in higher education. That's the top immediate reason we have to stabilize the budget with strong, balanced leadership on both the spending side and the tax side.
What you're referring to in the legislature, Senate Bill 48, I believe it was, where they put a cap on the program.
Correct.
So that's what you would cap the program, is what you're saying then?
At its present level, in other words, it could not grow exponentially into the future. If we allow it to continue to grow, then the statute you cited will inevitably kick in, and it will really harm a lot of students in the program.
Thank you very much, Senator Vitter. Mr. Edwards, will you work to enforce this statute?
Well, first of all, we're not going to have to. There will not be double-digit tuition increases while I'm governor. That's part of the problem we've had. $250 million, went to $280 million this year, and it's going to be $400 million a year in just a couple of years if we don't stop. And I am committed to stopping these tuition increases because they're pricing our kids out of higher education. They're making sure that our kids don't have the opportunity that they deserve to live the American dream right here in Louisiana. And we're going to increase our state general fund support for higher ed. That's what we're going to do, Jack. We're not going to have these tuition increases. And when we do that, overnight, TOPS becomes a sustainable program. We're not going to have to cap it. We're not going to have to invoke that statute that you just talked about. We're going to make sure that we do not increase the tuition on our students. TOPS is sustainable overnight.
You know, Senator, we supported 5 out of 8 Jindal budgets. Those cut $330 million from higher ed. He was part of that, not part of the solution, part of the...
You supported Bobby Jindal 3 out of 3 elections with your endorsements of the
over supporting Barack Obama.
According to a study done by LSU, 1 in 4 children here in Louisiana live in poverty. Our childhood poverty rate is one of the worst in the entire country. There's no doubt that both of you think this is a travesty.
Absolutely.
One way to immediately help kids would be to create a minimum wage which is higher than the federal minimum wage of $7.25 an hour. Last session, lawmakers proposed several bills raising the minimum wage, but they all failed. However, a 2014 LSU poll shows that 74% of Louisianians actually support raising the minimum wage to $8.50 an hour, with that amount automatically rising with the cost of living. So beginning with you, Mr. Edwards, would you support an increase in the minimum wage, and if so, what is that?
Well, first of all, I do. I call on Congress to increase the minimum wage. It's been $7.25 since 2009. There are now 30 states plus the District of Columbia that have a higher minimum wage than that's set by Congress. Congress ought to do its job because $7.25 is not adequate compensation for an hour's worth of work in 2015. We need to move forward. If Congress won't do its job, we will do it in Louisiana when I'm governor over 2 or 3 years in a couple of steps. I happen to think the $8.50 on the question that you asked people is about the right amount. And I think it's important that we do that because it is about making sure that the single mother raising kids can go to work and support herself and her family and lift those children out of poverty and give them a better chance of success here in Louisiana. I think it's the right thing to do. I believe it's something that Congress ought to have done a long time ago, and I hope that they will. It is always preferable to have Congress do that so we have a national uniform rate, but if they refuse to act, the governor probably will.
Thank you, sir.
Fred, I would not be in favor of that because I believe the premise of your question, quite frankly, is exactly wrong. You said that would help these young people. Problem is there are plenty of independent studies, latest one is Texas A&M, that says that minimum wage increase would kill 2.3 million jobs nationwide. And guess what? Those young people trying to work in their first job, trying to step up the ladder of success would be the first ones to be thrown out of that opportunity. Instead, I would focus like a laser beam on skills training. Give young people and others the skill sets they need. We have wonderful jobs in Louisiana, good paying. You don't need a 4-year degree. For many, you don't even need a 2-year degree. You need the right skill sets. When you have that, you can be a 21-year-old earning $55,000. In 4 years with overtime, you could be at $100,000. We need to focus on skills training, not eroding those entry-level jobs.
Thank you, sir.
Situation where you either raise the minimum wage or you do skills training. I will do both. It's called a compromise. Because that is another way to make sure that people who work every day, go to work, lay down the rules, so they don't live in poverty. We can do that. This is not a lose-or-more situation, but we can do both. We can chew gum and walk at the same time.
Senator Vitter, your first job after being elected, Mr. Edwards, will be to fill your cabinet and executive staff. Governor Bobby Jindal cast a wide net to put higher salaries in place. If elected, will you give Louisianians the first shot at the jobs, and will you keep Governor Jindal's pay increases?
Well, Jackie, absolutely. I want a cabinet administration full of great, bright Louisianians who represent all parts of our state. Now, I will not keep in place those salary increases because in some cases, like the head of LED, Louisiana Economic Development, they were quite frankly outrageous. So we're not going to keep most of those salary increases. I certainly will cast a net very wide for talented people of all backgrounds and walks of life in Louisiana. My administration will be the best and brightest of all of Louisiana. It will look like all of Louisiana, and it will help unite all of Louisiana around the positive plan we need to execute to get us out of the ditch and on the right track.
Okay, thank you very much, Senator. Mr. Edwards.
Well, first, we're not going to pay the same salaries that Bobby Jindal's been paying. They're exorbitant. They're too high. We're going to reduce those costs right off the top. I will tell you, we're going to cast a wide net of competent people here in Louisiana. We have very, very good public servants. We have knowledgeable people, experienced people who can run state government here in Louisiana. And I am committed to having a government that looks like the people of Louisiana. We will have diversity, not just in terms of cabinet level appointments, but on boards and commissions. People who work in my office. Everybody in Louisiana deserves the opportunity to see someone in state government who looks like they do. That's important to me. I think it's not just important for the sake of appearance. It's important for the sake of governing properly so that we can know that we understand the situation in Louisiana and we can fashion solutions to actually address the problems around the state. So we're really happy with Louisiana.
You both said that you want to restore funding to the state transportation fund. As governor, you're going to be asked to fix as many road problems just as quickly as you can. But With the $12 billion shortfall, you're going to have to make some tough choices. So Candy, tonight, Mr. Edwards, you first. List the top 3 roads you would fix or expand in the next year.
Well, first of all, it is a tough situation with respect to infrastructure in Louisiana. There's a $12 billion backlog, as you mentioned. The money is not there presently. We are taking some steps to move in the right direction. I'm going to get the state police completely out of the transportation trust fund, fund them separately without any cuts. I will put $60 million more in the transportation trust fund. I will allocate an additional 25% of the capital outlay budget each year for transportation infrastructure. That will be an additional $75 million. We will double the Port Priority Program overnight. Now, clearly, the single biggest road infrastructure improvement that we need in Louisiana is the I-10 corridor through Baton Rouge. I am committed to working on that project, but it is not that's the only pressing priority. We have I-49 south from Lafayette, I-49 north, and in Shreveport. We have off ramps that are needed on 10 and New Orleans to the airport. All of these things are priorities, but they're all going to require a strategic plan to get the money necessary to address those needs. Because it's inhibiting, first of all, it's a quality of life issue if you're hung up in traffic, but it's inhibiting commerce and economic development and job creation.
Thank you, sir. Same question to you, Senator.
Yeah.
Can you identify 3 roads you
Three vital projects. I-49, north and south. I-10, the bridge in Baton Rouge. That is the mother of all traffic jams. It is the center of enormous problems in terms of quality of life here in the capital city. And other key infrastructure in high growth areas like the river parishes and Lake Charles. There are several important projects there. Now, I just don't talk a good game about that, Fred. I've done it at the federal level. I've been involved in infrastructure, and through my and others' work, we've moved Louisiana from a donor state. We used to get 89 cents on the dollar back to Louisiana for every $1 federal gas tax we sent. Now we get $1.03. And so we've moved in the right direction under my and others' work. And I'll bring that same can-do spirit and real change to Baton Rouge. Now, John Bel is talking about rating, the problem with rating the state transportation trust fund. It is a problem, and he voted for it over and over and over. He voted for 5 out of 8 body general budgets. All of them rated the state transportation trust fund. The last one that he supported, only 11 cents of the dollar of every trust fund, of all the trust fund revenue is actually going to transportation, roads and bridges and concrete and asphalt and steel. That is a travesty, and John Bel Edwards voted to get us there.
Thank you, Senator. Mr. Edwards, you have 30 seconds to respond to you.
Well, first of all, I have cast hard votes in the legislature to fix the transportation trust fund, something he only talks about. We actually voted for revenue this year to get the state police out of the transportation trust fund completely. That will happen when I am governor in my very first budget. That will put $60 million more towards roads and bridges and Port Priority Program in Louisiana overnight. That is my record. You know, I don't even know the last time the Senate passed their budget.
Thank you very much.
We'd like to end on one person. Both of you have focused heavily on your wives in your campaign and on the campaign trail. Senator Vitter, your wife has in the past served as your campaign manager and filled in for you at debates. Mr. Edwards, your wife has been a constant on the campaign trail. She helped run your first campaign from your kitchen table. So you have 1 minute to tell us, what does your wife mean to your campaign? Senator Vitter.
Well, I'm going to change the question a little bit because what's far more important is what my wife means to me and my family. I mean, the campaign, win, lose, or draw, that's secondary to our kids, our family. And Wendy, quite frankly, has been the rock of our family. She's got us through good times and bad times. 15 years ago, she offered her love and her forgiveness to me. And in the process, our kids learned an unbelievable life lesson. Of course, I wish they didn't need to learn it that way, but Wendy use the opportunity, and she sure as heck taught them and me that life lesson. She's been great at everything she's done. She's worked outside the home as a prosecutor. She works now as an attorney. But I think she would say her proudest moments are those 19 years she stayed at home with the kids and led our family in those wonderfully powerful ways.
Donna has been my partner in my life for 26 years. We actually started dating when I was in 5th grade. And we are in the 1% club. That's the percentage of cadets at West Point who start and finish with the same girlfriend. So she is very special to me. She's a wonderful mother for my 10 children. She has worked very hard in the campaign. And she works the room at least as well as I do. But I will tell you that the most important thing about Donna to me is she is a public school teacher. And Donna, that's every day in our classrooms educating our children. I know what heroes they are. I know that we ought to hold them up. We ought not blame them for all the problems that we have in our society, which is what's happened under Bobby Kemper, which is shameful. And she helps me to stay grounded when it comes to public education and what our kids are facing out there, what teachers are facing every day when they go to school. So she means a lot to me personally in terms of my life, our marriage, but being the mother to our children, what she's done with the campaign, but making sure that I'm aware of what teachers are facing every day has been one of her biggest contributions to me as well.
Important topics, a lot of tough topics tonight. Hopefully giving the people at home a little bit better idea of what separates the two of you as candidates when they head to the polls on Saturday. So we want to wrap up things tonight by giving each of you a chance to speak directly to the voters. Mr. Edwards, we'll begin with you. You have 30 seconds for a closing statement.
Well, when I was commissioned an Army officer, nobody asked me whether I was a Democrat or Republican, because you don't win wars by dividing the Army against itself. I will govern by those same principles. If something is right for Louisiana families, I'll fight for it. If it's wrong for Louisiana families, I'll fight against it. Because the future doesn't belong to a political party. It belongs to all of us. And we together can work and restore opportunity for our children to live the American dream right here in Louisiana. I will be the uniter. I will be the leader. That's why I'm humbly asking for your vote and your prayers. Thank you, and God bless you.
You know, 15 years ago, I faced my darkest day in life when I had to look my kids in the eye and tell them how badly I failed our family. What they gave me in return was the best day of my life, when they and Wendy offered complete love and forgiveness. And that was absolutely the single best day of my life and the most powerful motivator I had for the rest of my life. I've used that every day since then to do right by them first and foremost, also to work hard, recommit to the people of Louisiana. And that's what I'm offering here today. We're in a low point in Louisiana. We can rise, we can go to great heights. I want to unite all of us to help lead us there. Please pray for me as I work to do that. Please support and vote for me on Saturday.
To go after it, so thank you so much.
Thanks for that. Thank you.
We also would like to thank our live audience, which was lively. So as we wrap up tonight, we want to remind you one more time that the runoff election happens this Saturday, so please turn out and vote.